I would say about 8 or 9 years ago, I was sitting in a conference room at Anderson Windows. We were starting our corporate giving program, our annual program we put together. And Art Bedella came up on stage and talked about Family Means and the Family Means programs. She was very passionate, and you can definitely tell that she was speaking from the heart. I remember sitting in the audience thinking, well, she's a neat lady. And she was neat enough to get my dollar donation for the corporate giving for Anderson that year. After that, I ended up joining the Next Gen Committee, a committee that actually helps put together this event, among many other things. It was ultimately turned into spending some time on their board and board chair. As I transitioned through these various roles, I got to spend a lot more time with Art Bedella, and she very quickly transitioned from this neat lady that I saw on stage to probably one of the most influential people I will meet in my life. She's an absolutely amazing person. Please help me welcome President of Family Means, Art Bedella Beck.
When we prepare our annual report, I usually have a picture of me and the board chair, and you can imagine, we finally figured out that if he's, really? Okay, I just have to hold it closer. All right, I'll keep trying. Anyway, when I took the picture with Johan for the annual report, he had to sit down, and I stood next to him, and it worked. We're a great team. I would like to welcome you all here on behalf of our staff and volunteers and the board of directors to the 11th annual Power of the Purse. I love seeing so many of our friends and fans at this event, and I appreciate the loyal attendance of many of you. When I learned who the speaker would be today, I was excited. I know how relevant Family Means programs are for people experiencing loss and grief. The obvious programs would be our Center for Grief and Loss, as well as our mental health services. I also know when people lose someone they deeply love, the adjustment can mean day-to-day life changes. Routine things like paying bills or taking care of your family suffers. It's also true that losing someone you were a caregiver for can mean a dramatic change in daily life. Many days were spent caring for your loved one. When they're gone, you can be at a loss for ways to get back into life as usual or establishing a new normal. Of course, some losses come suddenly and tragically, which calls for another kind of response and adjustment. Maybe you talked on the phone every day with your mom who dies suddenly, leaving you with a hole in your day and in your heart. I know Jane will give us a fresh perspective to consider our own grief and how we adjust to loss in our lives. I hope you'll learn some new things and appreciate Jane's humor, surely a gift in any circumstance. I also hope you'll leave today knowing that Family Means is a resource for all of us when we're dealing with really hard things in our life. Thank you again for joining us today and sharing your Sunday with us. Now I'd like to welcome our board chair, Liz McGinley.
Thank you, Art Bedella. Hi, everybody. I am Liz McGinley. I'm the board chair for Family Means. I am also a former member of the Power of the Purse committee. I actually started on the Power of the Purse committee about 9 years ago. Yeah, so I've been looking at the Power of the Purse committee this morning thinking to myself, wonder which one of them is a future board chair. So speaking of the Power of the Purse committee, did they not do a phenomenal job with this event here today? It's always a wonderful event, but I don't think they missed a single detail here today. So I just want to shout out to the Power of the Purse Committee. Thank you for all the work you did. I know you guys have been working really hard at this, and it's wonderful. So thank you. I also want to thank all of you for being here today. On behalf of the board, I just want to say how meaningful it is that you're all here, and also just to have your support of the agency. And thank you to the JX event venue, good friends of Family Means. I think we can all agree this is a really wonderful space to have an event like this, so great place. And for those of you that have been to multiple Power of the Purses, those in the last several years, it's kind of nice to have a little change of scenery too. Since 1963, Family Means has been a resource in our community. The reach of Family Means has expanded over the years, and they're serving more people than ever. Family Means is a place that our neighbors, our loved ones, you and I can go to when we just need some help navigating some of life's challenges. Family Means offers client-centered, asset-building, evidence-based programs. I think, we have all the programs listed up here, but really, basically, at the heart of it, Family Means helps people make positive life changes. And they're there to support you when you need it the most. So obviously, Family Means can't run its programs without the generosity of donors and volunteers, and every one of you here today is doing just that. You are supporting Family Means, and you're supporting the programs, and you're making it possible for Family Means to carry out its mission, which is to strengthen communities. So thank you again. After today, I do want to ask that you continue to think about how you can support Family Means. Perhaps that is, continuing to donate, volunteering, or continuing to volunteer. Maybe it's coming to the Power of the Purse event again next year. And really just being an ambassador, helping us be an ambassador for the agency. Whatever you already know about the agency, what you learn here today, please, tomorrow, go and tell your friends and your family and your coworkers and the businesses that you work with. Obviously, because of the generous donations and the grants that Family Means receives, they're able to be there for everybody that walks through their door. They don't turn away anybody. Anyone that walks through the doors of Family Means is going to get assistance. We do have some wonderful sponsors that I would like to thank today. These are all of the event sponsors that helped this event here today happen. So if we could all just give them a round of applause. It's fun to see some new sponsors. There are several new ones up here, so that's great. Hopefully that continues. And I want to say a very special thank you to 3 companies that have been event sponsors for 10 years. That is Eckberg Lammers, First State Bank and Trust, and St. Croix Sensory. So thank you to those very loyal donors. And of course, we have some in-kind sponsors that without their support, this event wouldn't be nearly as beautiful. So thank you to Occasion Linens, Rose Floral, Kind Lips, Zignego Agency, and SVL for the mystery purses. That's an after-program thing. So let's give a round of applause to our in-kind sponsors too. And at your place settings, everybody at their place settings, you'll notice the little Tiffany origami box. I want to point out that, there's a lot of people in this room here, so there's probably close to 350 boxes. Every one of those boxes was handmade by one of the teens in the Family Means Youth Program. So they have clearly been very hard at work and did a wonderful job. And you're going to hear more about the other programs of Family Means, but there you go. There's your little shout out for the youth program. And inside the box is a special little surprise. It is Kind Lips lip balm. So Kind Lips donated that lip balm to everybody here today. And I would like to welcome Josh Neumann, who is the founder of Kind Lips, to the stage now so we can thank him and we can hear a little bit more about Kind Lips and their mission.
It's good to be one of the girls today. I think that was low-hanging fruit. Thank you for the opportunity to be up here, and I just want to thank Family Means for the opportunity to be up here when we were presented the chance to team up with them and learn more about them. And so a round of applause for them. And so Kind Lips is, like you said, a lip balm. It actually started as a behavior modification tool, so it's supposed to be a reminder to speak kind words every time that you put it on your lips. So, and then 20% of our profits are donated to anti-bullying charities. So we do a lot of work in the school systems, and we have a challenge for you guys today. Before the day is over, to take your tube of Kind Lips, apply it to your lips, and give somebody that you haven't ever spoken to a compliment. And extra credit challenge that I gave to myself today is one thing that I do struggle with is being kind to myself. And so when you get home, put your Kind Lips on, look in the mirror, give yourself a compliment. So thank you.
Thank you, Josh. I think we can all get behind the Kind Lips challenge. Together we can accomplish so much. Your attendance, your bidding, your donations to the Powerwall, all of it adds up. Every dollar counts, of course. So I do want to, one more time, thank you for opening up your purses today. As you checked in at registration, you probably heard that for every $25 that you donated to the Powerwall, you got a ticket entered into a drawing for this beautiful Coach purse, and I believe there is a matching wallet in here as well. Somewhere, yep, it's in there. So, I'm happy to say that it is time to do this drawing. So Johan, where's Johan? Johan's gonna pick the winning ticket. Hey, look at this. Johan and I are almost the same height now.
All right. 8-4. Oh, I better use microphone. I wanted to yell. 8-4. 7-5. 7-2. We have a winner. Hello, Cheryl. Well, congratulations. You're the winner. Let's give Cheryl a hand. All right. How was lunch? Pretty good. I kind of inhaled mine since I have a little bit of a duty up here, but that's okay. It was still fantastic, so thank you. Any of us could become a caregiver. This is generally not a role that we go out and volunteer for, but it's a very important role for the person that's receiving the caregiving services. This role, although usually temporary, can still span multiple years, even tens of years, as you may be a caregiver and you may have some personal experience with that. This is a stressful, it's certainly a life-changing, in some cases, role to play. It certainly has this physical, emotional, mentally, and in many cases also a financial challenge to be a caregiver for somebody. Family Means recognizes this, and have been recognizing this for 33 years with a aging and caregiving program. And they actually complement this program with additional programs around counseling and therapy, financial solutions, and then some services that we provide out of a Center for Grief and Loss out in St. Paul. I know what I need. This will make things go a lot smoother. Receiving coaching can be something as simple as just somebody providing a listening ear. It could be something as simple as giving you some cards that you can hand out in restaurants or in public areas, just asking for somebody providing services to have a little more patience with the person that you're caregiving for. It can certainly also be something as complicated as navigating end-of-life events, navigating difficulties as a disease may be starting to take its toll and you're putting you through some paces that you wouldn't otherwise have ever been experiencing. No one chooses to have a disease, and no one chooses to become a care receiver, but this happens, and it is as a caregiver, it's a very, very important role, and we do it because we love the person. We don't do it because we feel some kind of obligation that, well, this is something I must do. We do it because we care for that person. It can be a very overwhelming role to have, and this is why Family Means has this caregiving and aging services as part of the program that they provide. Would like to, we have, in addition to this, one of the programs that we have is this respite care. We need to take care of the people that are providing these caregiving services, and this in-home and group respite care is really a place to meet with people that play the same role, interact with people, and also get a little bit of respite, a little bit of break from the day-to-day services that you provide as a caregiver. There's a reason when you're on a flight that if for some reason you lose the cabin pressure, that they tell you to put your own mask on first before assisting others. It kind of applies here also, is that we have to make sure that we, as a caregiver, we remain healthy and strong, which means that we have to have breaks to go maybe do our doctor visits, or maybe just get a break, a little mental health break to continue to provide these caregiving services. Family Means provide this to nearly 100 respite volunteers, which if you are one of these volunteers for the respite program, would you please stand up? We have a few of them here today. Thank you. Some of these volunteers may also be helping the power of the person. They're probably in the back trying to figure out the selling of the purses that have all been bid on. This respite volunteer program is perhaps much better explained by a short video that I'd like to have you turn your attention to the screen for a short video.
Caregiving happens at all ages. So that means if you're a parent with a child or it's somebody that's older in life, caregiving happens in those situations because illness brings to families heightened responsibility, and caregivers take that responsibility on.
Michael is by far the sweetest, kindest, most gentle man. We were at his father's funeral, and he said, I'm having trouble remembering our friends' children's names. And then I said, how would you feel about having this checked out? And he said, fine. And that was the beginning of our life changing. My stress level has gone through the roof. I feel like I now have 100% of the load in our marriage. I used to walk 4 miles a day, every day. I can't do those things anymore. I can't leave him. And that really, really impacts my life.
Respite care is a break. It's stepping into a companionship role for a few hours once a week. Volunteers don't have to take on big, complex tasks. It's just companionship, it's friendship.
Plenty of sunshine heading my way. Zippity-doo-dah, zippity-yay.
Michael and I are so much alike. I am a singer, I am a dancer, I am a social guy, and really that's what Michael is. We're just buddies. I come in here and we shake hands, how you doing, this and that, and then we just start talking about stuff or break out in songs.
The stress level goes way, way down when Sam's here. I can leave to go grocery shopping or doing something like that with no worries in the world. He just knows everything, how to treat Michael and get him going and stuff. They always have a good time.
I retired at 60, and I realized soon after I retired that I needed to do a little bit more. I also miss the idea of really having some purpose. When you're working, you have purpose there. When you got kids at home, you got purpose. All of a sudden you're retired, getting all these fun things, that's great. I need purpose. It makes me feel like I make a difference again. A caregiver's life is not an easy life, but whenever I'm here and I get ready to go or whatever else, she'll look at me, she says, thank you. It means the world for her.
Caregiving, as a caregiver, we often get caught up in the emotional part and the day-to-day actions that have to happen, getting somebody dressed, getting them to the hospital, medications, those kinds of things. And we maybe sometimes forget about the important topics that go along with this end-of-life journey. There are some, if you can call them practical things that have to happen as part of this journey, and they cannot be ignored and certainly should be addressed. Our keynote speaker today, through some was unexpectedly put in this position of being a caregiver, and she chose to turn this into a career. She recognized that these are the services that we need as we make it through this journey. As it was described in my notes here, it says end-of-life doula was sort of the title that was given. And I don't know about you, doula is not a word that I find used very often in corporate America in my IT career, so I had to look it up. And it turns out it's a word that was actually used quite a bit in the mid-1800s, describing a person that will help you, kind of like a midwife, but it kind of helps you through the process of giving birth and the pre and post support that a person might need in that role. So our guest speaker today has creatively taken this word and applied it to the end of life as well. In fact, she has been, what I have in quotes here is death doula. So a unique title, but please help me in joining, welcome Jane Whitcomb to Power of the Purse. She's a guest speaker today.
Hello, it's so great to be here. Thanks so much for having me. Can you hear me okay in the back? Okay. When I told my sister, who's about 1 million times fancier than I am, that I was speaking at an event called Power of the Purse, she couldn't stop laughing for about 7 minutes. Because this is my purse. She's like, you don't even own a purse. But I have to say, I think I redeemed myself with my wallet, right? I am an end-of-life doula, and I have a dream that we will prepare as thoughtfully and carefully and lovingly for death as we do for birth. They're the bookends to our lives, and they're both, we come from a mysterious place and we go to a mysterious place. I would love it if we had books, like what to expect when you're expecting, but for death. Like the go-to, so everybody could be prepared and it wasn't so shrouded in fear and anxiety. I wish that we could talk about it. I wish I could call myself a death doula, but people are afraid of that. You can't say the D word or the dying word. When someone gets a terminal diagnosis, we have a hard time talking to each other. We're really afraid of saying the wrong thing, and sometimes people who are experiencing that lose friends because there's so much anxiety around how do you communicate your support to someone at that time. We prepare rooms for the new babies, and wouldn't it be great if we thought about the kind of room we want to die in? I just read about a book about an artist who knew that he was dying, and he spent his last months painting these floor-to-ceiling murals of angels that he wanted to be surrounded by. In Australia and New Zealand, they're way far ahead of us. They have dying rooms in hospitals that you will get transferred to, and they're surrounded by these white, billowy curtains, and you can have anything projected on the walls of your dying room. I mean, I'm kind of a fan of sunsets or geese flying home or, humpback whales, whatever. You can control what you're listening to. We have playlists for birth. Why not have a playlist for death? I think part of the reason we have such a hard time communicating around this issue is because when in that doctor's meeting where you get a terminal diagnosis, maybe it's 45 minutes long, 42 of those minutes are spent on the treatment plan. Very little is spent on what the dying process might look like. And I understand at the initial meeting, you will be in shock and probably not able to absorb much, but that doesn't change through the course of the treatment. We focus singularly on the treatment plan, and we don't open this parallel track to think about what the dying experience might be like, or how do we support someone who is going through this. Because of this, we have become a nation that has hospitals that are full of people on ventilators and feeding tubes, and they are surrounded by exhausted caregivers who feel like their only hope is to pray for a miracle because they have no idea what this person would have wanted. 70% of people say they want to die at home. 69% of people die in a facility. The only people who escape this statistic, and they do it amazingly well, is doctors. 72% of doctors die at home. And I believe this happens because they are familiar with death. They see death. They are comfortable with it. They know it's going to happen. Their attitude is, and I believe this is profound, if we could all think like this, I think we would have a better time here on planet Earth. When I get what I am going to get, I will blank, 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 because we are all going to get something. So the level of shock and surprise when we get sick, sometimes, my husband died at 50. So because of that experience, obviously I've changed profoundly. But we are all going to get something. And if we could hold that in our hearts, I think we would have a better time when the time actually comes. The rest of us who are not holding it in our hearts, when we get that diagnosis, we run as fast and as far for as long as we can. And that is why we are not getting the deaths that we want at home, because we don't know where to draw the line, right? Doctors know where the benefits of treatment stop and the benefits of being home with your loved ones begin. So, thinking about death is the best twofer of all time. You can lead a better life and have a better death if you hold this. And the question is, how did I get here? How did I get to be this person who does a lot of thinking and talking about death? Ask My Friend is here, and basically at every party, it gets back around to death and dying. I can't get enough of it. It's a real buzzkill. So when I was 47, my husband developed a cough, and it didn't go away, and he was a very fit runner. He was a grade school principal. He was going all the time, and this cough just wouldn't go away. And this is the start of the roller coaster of diagnosis. It's a gazillion tests. No one has any answers, and then you finally get the diagnosis. He had kidney cancer, and it had already spread to his lungs. So we were in shock those first few days and weeks. And I like to think of it like a giant sifter being dropped on my front lawn. And our whole lives got poured into that sifter. And it was really easy to see what mattered. All the stuff that didn't matter anymore fell through the sifter onto my front lawn. All the chatter in my head about what I looked like. Was I successful? Did I, in fact, have the least respectable car in the school pickup line? It all fell through the sifter. I didn't care anymore. But the things that were in the sifter were people and our relationships. And the thing that really shocked me, the thing that was the brightest and shiniest in the sifter was the present moment. Because that is what happens when your future disappears. That's what you realize that is all any of us have ever had. No matter how much we think we can control things, all we ever have is the present moment with our tribe. So I had decided the things that fell through the sifter were really things about my ego. And the things that were still in the sifter were things that fed my soul. Things that I had taken for granted of just the day before. Walking with Rob at sunset. Or lying in my hammock under a canopy of shimmery green leaves. These were the things that fed my soul, and I decided that at that moment, the rest of my life, I am going to listen to my soul. Before my first life, I was a middle school social studies teacher, I was an athletic director, and I was a coach. That was my life. But I decided to follow my intuition, and it led me to everything about death and dying, and I found out about end-of-life doulas. So I took a training and I launched a business, and then I was like, no, nobody knows what an end-of-life doula is, and if they did, they wouldn't want to talk about it. So not a great business model, maybe. So I've decided that I'm going to focus on education for a while, trying to get the word out that death really is our go-to partner in leading a better life. So the next question is, how do you get here without losing your life partner? How do you get that kind of gratitude and that intense appreciation of the moment? And I think there are many ways to do it. I like to see death wherever I am. It's everywhere in the natural world. Right, these pillars right here, they used to be trees. All the leaves outside, roadkill, whatever, everything is in a cycle, and we too are part of that natural cycle. It is so easy for me to see that I am super finite, I'm super unimportant, and I'm here for a heartbeat. Another thing, in Nepal, the culture has a phrase that everybody knows, and it's, you are born with death on your shoulders. So imagine if we lived like that. We thought about death all the time. One of the ways the Buddhists believe that we do this is to remind yourself 5 times a day that you're going to die. And that if you do that, you will be more in the moment. So that actually, I'm a caregiver. I'm a single mom of 2 teenage boys, and I take care of my parents who are 91 and 89. And one time I was headed to the hospital to visit my mother, and I was like, oh, like I cannot do this for one more second. And my WeCroak app went off, and your phone bings, and then it says, just as a reminder, you are gonna die. So I just stopped in my tracks, looked up at this big, beautiful sky, took about 5 great big breaths, and I actually went in and had a nice time with my mom because I could get out from under the exhaustion that caregiving is in the day-to-day. So I'm going to tell you some stories from my work as an end-of-life doula. The first family I worked with was a woman who's 73. She had had a terminal diagnosis 2 years previously, had done a lot of different treatments to get, when someone gets a terminal diagnosis, the number one thing that everybody wants is more time, right? You can't fault them for that. And we are willing to go through a lot of painful and uncomfortable things to get more time. But the thing that we are not very good at is the more time that we get is really hard to live. Because the time when you know you are dying can be filled with anxiety and fear and terror of death, and it's really difficult. You want more time, but you want more of the time you're never going to get back to. Or most people are not going to be cured and free of that kind of anxiety. So this client called me, and she had finally gotten the word, like, there's nothing more to be done. The treatment is not working anymore. Go home and put your affairs in order. And then she contacted me, so I was asking, like, what do you want from this time? And she said, I want to be cured. And I said, so what are you going to do about that? And she's pursuing all these wacky treatments, on the internet, doing I don't know what. But she can't sleep. She's terrified of dying. I said, well, maybe, she's got this great husband who happens to be a Buddhist. So I was like, oh, this guy. So I said, maybe you should throw a little gratitude party for your husband. He's, been through all this. And she's like, she just could not see her way past the anxiety and the fear and the jealousy that other people were going to live. And it was just, I thought, if you had been holding death a little closer and exploring what kind of spiritual beliefs you had around what happens to you at end of life, I think she could have mitigated some of that anxiety. Eventually I said, you did hire me and I'm a death doula. It's really hard for me to work with people who are in denial. I can give you as much compassion as you want, but you're going to be in this spot until you let go of something. It's like that monkey in the coconut tree where the monkey is holding on to something inside the tree and they can't get away, but if they just let go, they could get free. If she could just let go of wanting to be cured, it would open up that energy for gratitude for whatever time she had left. My father-in-law also got a terminal diagnosis. He was 77 as well, and he did one chemo treatment. It was terrible. He felt lousy. He said, you know what? My train is coming into the station. I'm just going to spend the rest of my life, decorating that station and getting ready for it and having it as much as I want it to be. And he stayed at home with his friends and family and his pets and passed peacefully. One of the other jobs of getting ready to die is doing some legacy work. If you can think of what little piece, what ripple you are leaving behind here at the end of your life, it can give you great comfort. You had a sense of purpose. So I met this man, and young men seem to be super blasé about death. I don't know why. I asked him, what do you want to do with the time that you have left? And he's like, doesn't matter, it is what it is. I was like, well, what did you do for a job? He was a short order cook his whole life. And I said, what's your favorite thing to make? And he said, what's your favorite thing to make? I hate that question. Everybody always asks me that question. I don't care, I'm a short order cook. I'll make you whatever you want. I was like, So I gently kept asking questions and was mostly rebuffed. And then I remembered. I said, I heard the litmus test for a good chef is how you make your scrambled eggs. And then he just lit up and he said, you're right. And then he kind of rolled toward me and I said, so how do you make your eggs? And he went into this, what kind of fat, what kind of pan, how long on the heat, blah, blah, blah. And I said, and he had no children and no partner. I said, why don't you come up, write your recipe down? You can give it to your nieces and nephews, and then they can say, I'm making Uncle So-and-so's eggs. And he got tears in his eyes, and I said, what about, your pots and pans at home? Do you have, all these special cooking things? And he said, yeah, I got a ton. I said, what's going to happen to it? He's like, I don't know, they'll just take it to Goodwill. So why don't you get them to bring it here and you can pick out a pan and a spoon and the recipe and give them to all your people. And I could see this was like something that had never occurred to him. And these kind of conversations just do not happen. He was in a hospice facility with hospice people, but the average stay in hospice is 10 to 14 days. And the hospice folks are doing a job. You know, I can do my work really because I don't have a job to do. That's the number one qualification for an end-of-life doula, to go in there without any agenda, with basically an empty mind, and see what comes to you. I had another, how am I doing, timekeeper? Okay, excellent. I had another family, the mother was dying, and the two daughters were in the room, and the nurses said, you need to go in there and help that family. There is a lot of stress in there. So I went in, and one of the sisters could not stop talking. And one of the questions I asked, this is in hospice, I say, you know, tell me what your mother was like. And it usually gets them telling all their good family stories. And this one daughter just was so angry, and she said she was a taskmaster, and she ruled with an iron fist, and just a ton of negative stuff. And I could see it was really bothering the other sister. So I said, hey, why don't the two of us go get a cup of coffee? So we went and got a cup of coffee, and I heard her life story. And she had reasons to be really, really hurt. And I mean, there had been like emotional abuse and neglect for her whole life. So I said, why are you here? And she thought, and she said, you know, I don't know. And I said, well, have you told her? Have you told her everything that's in your heart? And she said, yeah. And she always says, oh, that's water under the bridge. Why do you keep complaining about that? And I said, well, now she can't speak anymore. She's in a sleep coma. My hearing is the last sense to leave. So I said, she can still hear you. And I think it's okay if you give yourself 5 minutes to go in there and say what's on your heart. And if you can find it in yourself to forgive her after you say all that, then great. If not, that's okay. But you get to unburden your heart for 5 minutes. And then she gets to have a peaceful death. So she went in and she did that, and she flew home the next day. But these, again, we're so complex as people, and a lot of times we leave so much stuff for end of life. And if I can convince anyone here of anything, it's to start doing those things now. In hospice, they use this Hawaiian tradition, like Ho'oponopono. And it's, I'm sorry, I forgive you, thank you, and I love you. And it's sort of to clear karma, right? All of us should shoot for end of life without any kind of karma baggage on our plate. When they told this to Rob and I, we could not get enough of it. We're like, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I love for this, that, and the other thing. I love you. And it was so liberating. We're like, why didn't we do this like basically every night? Because you know, you can tally a lot of stuff over the course of a day. And there are missteps. To have the fearlessness to enter into these conversations with loved ones, you will hit landmines. It's okay. I think the benefits of what you get from having these conversations outweigh the landmines. So I was with a man, he was probably 55, and I think he weighed 80 pounds, and he was sitting up. He had no business sitting up. It was his will to live. And he was very OCD. So I was warned before I went in, like, don't touch anything because it will be really upsetting for him. So we sat, and he had been super rude to staff and really angry. And so I went in and I said, you know, I'm a volunteer, and, you know, can I just have a visit? Are you up for a visit? And he looks at me through this long hair and he says, what would that entail? And then I fell in love with him. It's like, I said, well, it would entail me sitting here and then listening to you and vice versa, how a normal conversation works. And he's like, okay. So we were chatting, and he had been given his meal card. And you know, he was on all kinds of powerful end-of-life painkillers, and you get so foggy. And he was trying to fill out his meal card, and he was like, come on, come on, come on. And you know, really hard on himself. Men have a very hard time at end of life because they've been in control, they have been the caretakers, and at end of life, somebody else is going to take care of you. So he was really adamant that I not help him with this meal card. So he kept saying over and over, be patient, be patient. I'm like, I got all day. So I basically didn't say anything. He finally finishes his meal card, and then the orderly, who's been giving him grief about not filling out the meal card, doesn't come for 15 more minutes. So we had a big chuckle about that, and then pretty much we're laughing, and then his lunch came, and it takes him about 2 minutes to cut a piece of fish and put a ton of mayonnaise on the piece of fish and gets it to his mouth. And he's starting to chew, and then I can tell this is a moment at end of life when you can no longer swallow. It's like you don't make the saliva, your body doesn't need food anymore. It's a very natural thing, but it is super emotional. So he's chewing this, and I said, you can spit it out. So he spit it out, and then he slowly lifted up his food tray and started to hold, and I said, are we banishing the food? And he said, so I said, are we banishing it way over here into the corner? Mm-hmm. So I'd take it way into the corner. And then he'd slowly pick up the ketchup. And I'd say, are we banishing the ketchup? Yes. So we do this whole pantomime of where everything goes and what I can touch and what I can't touch. And then he says, I don't know when you work next, but I have a feeling this is the last time I'm going to see you. And I said, I think it is the last time you're going to see me. And he dropped his head, and he crossed himself, and he knocked wood. And I don't say anything. The quiet spaces are where the important stuff happens. So I just sit there. And then he says, I'm so pissed. And I wait, and I said, is it okay that you're pissed, or do you wish you weren't? And he thought for a long time, and he said, I wish I wasn't. And then I said, and I probably should have kept my mouth shut, but I said, I am so sorry. I mean, I understand why you are, but I'm so sorry. And he looked up at me with these steely blue eyes, and he said, you understand nothing. And I was like, you're right. I'm not dying. I understand nothing. And then he went, and I was like, oh, I've been banished. So I leave, and the hospice staff is like celebrating me like I'm some sort of like hero. Like, oh my gosh, he was laughing. You got to stay in there for so long. That's so great. And I just felt like a pile of rocks. And it was the end of my shift, so I was leaving, and I thought, I know he doesn't want to see me, but I'm going to have to live with this. I have to go back. So I went back and I knocked on his door, and he looked up, and I said, hey, I'm super sorry. And he went. So that's how it goes. Another time I was with a woman, and she was all set. She had very firm spiritual beliefs. She was pretty confident of where she was going. Everything had been wrapped up. We had taken a walk earlier today, and this, it's like an equipment room for the facility she was at, like a shed. She said, oh, that's where the Lord and Manor lives. And I was like, And she said, oh yeah, we'll be going there later today. So people at end of life see things. They know where they're going. I was just with another man who, his family told me that he had looked out the window and said, oh, mom and dad are doing yard work out there. And his mom and dad had been dead for 40 years. I cannot tell you how often in hospice people are reaching for someone, like their child that died 20 years ago. They're begging them to take them with. They're like, why won't they take me with them? So I think if more people had experience with end of life, if as a culture it was more normal to die at home, we wouldn't all be so afraid, because we would have seen these people who were begging to be taken by their loved ones who showed up. So Darlene, who said, that's where the Lord and Manor lives, I'll be going to him later. A couple days before then, she had 4 daughters who were excellent caregivers. And I said, so you're all set to go. You're all ready. I see you've got these 4 daughters who are dynamite. How about you write them letters of gratitude? And she was like, I love that. So she wrote letters, and we hid them in all her stuff so they'll find them after she dies. There's just so many things that we can do at end of life that aren't happening. It's not rocket science. With my own parents, you do these activities called life reviews, and so one of them is writing your own obituary. So with my own parents, I was like, hey, what do you think? Are you up for writing your own obituary? And my dad's like, oh yeah, that's how I get to sleep every night. So I was like, great. So I sat at the computer and wrote down his whole obituary, and then he said, he will be remembered, and then he laughed and said, well, you kids have to do that. So I sent it out to my 3 brothers and sister, and they wrote back these amazing, beautiful things about how they will remember our father. And I got to read them to him, and he was speechless. And then after a long time, he said, well, I guess a life well lived. What a gift. But I would guess that most people are afraid to say to their parent, hey, should we write your obituary? I mean, you just have to be fearless to step into and say, I know you're going to die. I'm going to die. I want to know how to take care of you. And what music do you want to listen to? Do you want your bed pillow sprayed with lavender every morning? Do you want your peonies fresh cut from the garden surrounding your bed here? Do you want to be by a window? I think it's an untapped gold mine. So one of the secret things that got me through, this is my timekeeper, by the way. She's the bomb. One of the things that got me through Rob's death was my brother-in-law, Rob's brother's wife, had died in her mid-40s, so he had already been through this. And he sent me this video 2 days before Rob died, and nothing made me feel better. I think you might think that's a strange choice after you see the video, but there is something about how we feel entitled. Like, we feel entitled to live to a certain age. At least I did. I was like, I'm going to live to 85. Or I felt entitled to have my partner with me for my whole life. And when I lost that, I feel like I gained this gratitude for the present, that there was no other way to get that. So this makes me cry every single time I watch it. I'll try to keep myself together.
You're my life, you're my breath, you're a smile, you're my guest. You're the earth, you're the sun, you're the grass, you are love. You're my hands, you're a bug, you're my eyes, you're a hug. You're the light in the dark, you're the spark, you are fun. You're my mom, you are water, you're the stars, you're my daughter. You're my friend till the end, you're my dreams, you're my father. You're the ants on the ground, the miracles that surround. I'm feeling it all around, the hemisphere in the clouds. You're my pain, you're my sorrow, you're my hope for tomorrow. You're the strength when I'm hollow, you're the path that I follow. You're the blessings that exist, the small things that are bliss. The gift to realize that everything
all
is
that I am, all that I see, all that I've been, and all that I'll ever be is a blessing. It's so amazing, and I'm grateful for it all, for it all. Grateful for it all.
You're the blessings every time I try to count. You're the lessons that I learn every time I turn around. You're the water when I'm burned every time I think I found everything I'm looking for. You're the sign saying stop to take a bow and keep moving forward and start looking towards your heart. It'll open all the doors and only then you'll start to hear the world singing chorus with your mind and heart. Aligned in purpose, everything
All
will feel
that I
gorgeous.
am, all that I see, all that I've been, and all that I'll ever be is a blessing. It's so amazing, and I'm grateful for it all, for it all.
Every day I sit and pray cause what I have is more than I deserve or could ever imagine. How do I give back to all of this magic and spread the love so everybody can have it? Doesn't matter if I'm rich or poor, if I got a family or if I'm all alone. Bad things happen, I can just complain and moan. But there's a million things that I can be grateful for.
So I lift up my hands now, and I open my heart.
things that exist, the small things that are bliss, the gift to realize that everything is a gift.